Hello, today our topic is statistical investigation and data. First, we will learn what is statistical investigation. An investigation or inquiry means search for knowledge. Statistical investigation or statistical inquiry means search for knowledge with the help of statistical methods. Statistical investigation is a technical job which requires specialized knowledge and skill. According to Giffin, statistical inquiries have always required considerable skill on the part of the statistician, rooted in a broad knowledge of the subject matter area and combined with considerable ingenuity in overcoming practical difficulties. We will discuss what is the nature of data. The term data refers to a set of numerical figures or facts. These figures and facts are collected through a statistical investigation. Since utility of the conclusions derived from the findings, that statistical investigation depends upon the reliability of data. The statistical investigation must be planned carefully and executed properly. Further, the investigation has to select appropriate method of collecting accurate data. Next, we have meaning and nature of data. As we have discussed in the first slide, data is nothing but numerical facts and figures, namely, the numerical facts and maybe units produced or sold, profit or losses, size of population, national income, etc. Statistical data may be treated as observations made on certain aspects of the purpose of attaining certain predetermined objectives. According to Levin, data is collection of any number of related observations. Data occupies the most important place in statistics, as all statistical decisions are made on the basis of numerical facts and figures. Types of data. Data may be quantitative or qualitative. And meaning of statistical investigation already we have discussed. Even statistical investigation is nothing but usually data collected with the help of statistical investigation. We use data in this sense. A statistical investigation is a systematic method of collecting information with respect to a variable or an attribute. This aims to achieve a particular objective or purpose. A statistical investigation is a search for knowledge, as we have discussed in the first slide, conducted with the help of appropriate statistical principles and techniques. It's a process where an individual or an agency collects relevant information in numbers rather than in words. Okay, next we'll discuss about types of statistical investigations. Before investigator starts the work of data collection, he must decide about the type of investigation, as the planning and organizing of data depends on the type of investigation. Further, the objective and scope of investigation, the organizational arrangements, preparation of questionnaires and schedules, methods and techniques of data collection and processing of data depends to a large extent on the type of investigation. Statistical investigation may be of the following types. There are certain types of statistical investigations recognized. One is direct or indirect. If the data are collected directly from the respondents concerned, it is called direct investigation. On the other hand, if the data are collected from third parties other than the respondents, then that is called as indirect investigation. Initial or repetitive. An initial investigation is an original investigation conducted for the first time, that is also called as primary or pioneer investigation. This type of investigation requires careful planning, elaborate organizational arrangements For the first time we are doing, we certainly expect, we have some expectations. In order to meet those expectations, we need to plan it carefully. A repetitive investigation is conducted in continuation of the initial investigation. Hence, this investigation does not require a separate planning, since already a prepared plan exists, and some changes are required to suit the uh, repetition. Okay, some changes certainly, because according to the modification that took place in the environment, we need to make changes in the plan, but total planning is not required. We need to make small changes in repetitive statistical investigation. Next, regular or ad hoc. Regular investigation is carried out regularly on continuous basis. It is conducted at regular intervals of time period, that may be quarterly, of yearly. Sometimes they may plan 5 years once, 3 or 5 years once. An ad hoc investigation is conducted at a particular time period, aiming at a particular objective and specific purpose. They are meant for to reach out the specific purposes. They are called as ad hoc statistical investigation. And next, confidential or open. Confidential investigation, otherwise known as secret investigation, is conducted confidentially or in the camera. Investigation that is hidden by the investigator intentionally is called as confidential. Confidential investigations are purely meant for private purposes. Okay, purely meant for private purposes. They won't be disclosed. They intentionally hide the content. On the other hand, in non-confidential or open investigations, there is no hiding of data or investigation purpose. Okay, the investigation is conducted publicly, then it is called a open. Okay, no hiding in that is that is called as open statistical investigation. And non-official, okay, official or non-official or sometimes semi-official is also available. The investigation carried out by and on behalf of government is known as official investigation. Okay, in these investigations, government can cause compulsions to provide information, as certain laws include the compulsory provisions of information. As for example, citizens of India, if government wants to collect data regarding the population or socio-economic survey, if the government going to conduct, certainly as the citizens of India, we need to abide by the rules and regulations framed by the government, and it may be compulsory to provide the information. Since the government can afford to spend huge amounts, the scope also will be wider in nature. On the other hand, non-official investigations conducted by other than government agencies. So, non-official, okay, conducted by other than government will have limited scope due to problems related to extracting data and availability of resources. A semi-official investigation is carried out by certain carried out by certain carried out by other than government agencies will have limited scope due to problems related to extracting data and availability of resources. A semi-official investigation is carried out by certain organizations enjoying government patronage. Example, universities, research institutions, etc. Okay. Next, we have extensive or limited. While an extensive investigation includes wider coverage of aspects, limited investigation usually includes very few aspects to be studied. pilot or comprehensive investigation. Lastly, we have pilot or comprehensive. A pilot investigation precedes a comprehensive investigation to understand the problem likely to be encountered in the process of investigation, whereas a comprehensive investigation is an in-depth study for attaining the subject and the purpose of investigation. Okay. Next, we have stages of statistical investigation planning. Okay. Here in these stages only we have, because of paucity of time, we will discuss in this class only planning the statistical investigation. Okay. In collection of data, organization of data, presentation of data, analysis of data, interpretation of data will be discussed in the future classes. Okay. What are the steps in planning of investigation? Okay. Planning of the statistical investigation has a few steps. We will discuss. Planning is the first and most important stage of statistical investigation. If the investigation is not well planned in the beginning itself, the investigator may not acquaint himself with the practical difficulties which he has to encounter in the actual execution of the plan. Okay, hence he has to plan the investigation. Okay, the steps which are required plan the investigation are: define the objective and scope of investigation. This is the first step. Okay, at the outset the investigator has to state the objective of the investigation in clear and definite terms. Okay, statement of the object involves specifying the purpose for which the investigation is to be carried. Okay, we will discuss. Okay, next example for this is, if the investigator intends to conduct an investigation in respect of consumer survey, his objective may be to regulate the production in accordance with the consumer tastes and preferences. Okay. Scope, when we come to scope of investigation, when we consider the scope of investigation, it is also necessary to define the scope of investigation. The scope of any inquiry outlines the nature and coverage of investigation. This includes the determination of the type of information needed, number of respondents to be approached, geographical area to be covered, okay, etc. To achieve this objective, his scope of investigation may be determined: the market area to be covered, present and prospective consumers to be approached, number of consumers to be included in the study, etc. To the extent possible, consumer opinion about the product and also data relating to the availability of substitutes and complementaries should be collected. A clear statement of the object and scope avoids collection of irrelevant data. Okay, if you have a clear statement and objective and scope of the statistical investigation, certainly that will avoid irrelevant data. Okay, collection of irrelevant data. This estimates confusion and saves the precious time, okay, and money of the investigator. The specifications of the object helps classification, tabulation, analysis and interpretation of collected data. Further, the importance of defining the object and scope of statistical investigation can be understood from the word of Professor Yao Chao, who states that only after specifying the objects, okay, it can be determined which data shall be relevant to the problem under inquiry. If he fails to do this, the data collected may be entirely irrelevant or may even tend to rather than clarify the problem. Okay, it is well to remember the quality of statistical event, okay, tend to rather statistical conclusions depend upon the appropriate and accuracy of data, which in turn depends upon the exactness in formulating the problem statistical techniques. And no matter how refined and precise, cannot yield useful results for arriving at decisions on problems if they are applied in inappropriate data. Okay, the scope of investigation must be determined by keeping in the mind the object of investigation, availability of resources such as money, time, and experience, and trained personnel to carry out the investigation. Specification of various terms. After determining the object and scope of investigation, the investigator will have to state the various terms related to the study. Will have to state the various terms related to the study. To avoid ambiguity and conclusion, it is always desirable to define clearly and precisely all terms that are to be used in various phases of the statistical investigation. Such definition should be followed uniformly throughout the investigation. For example, an investigation regarding wages of the workers should clearly spell out the term worker at one phase of the survey. If worker includes casual labor, and in the subsequent stage, if it is excluded casual labor, uniformity is not said to be ensured. This type of inconsistency will not serve the purpose of investigation. Okay, and this investigator should also define the statistical unit in terms of which data is to be counted or measured. Okay, the unit in terms of which investigator collects, organizes, analyzes, and interprets the statistical results is known as statistical units. A clear definition of statistical unit avoids misunderstanding and ensures homogeneity in data. This facilitates meaningful comparison and observations. The need for defining the unit is very essential in case of qualitative data which lacks standard connotations. Next, statistical units may be either conventional or arbitrary. Sometimes they may be conventional, sometimes they may be arbitrary. While conventional units are universally accepted and do not require any specific definitions, the definition of arbitrary units change from investigation to investigation. Hence, they require clear-cut definition. Meter, liter, unit, hour, year, turn, etc. Okay, are some of the example of arbitrary units. Okay, we are not in a position to measure all the things which are prevailing in this world with one unit, that is kilogram or meter or liter. They have their own parameters. Okay, every quantity has its own measuring rod. Statistical units are classified into two categories. Okay, one is units of collection and another is units of analysis and interpretation. Okay, we have under units of collection simple units, compound units, and complex units will come across. Okay, units of collection are specifications in terms of which data is collected, measured, and recorded. Units of collection must be defined clearly before the commencement of the investigation to suit the object and scope of investigation. Unit of collection may be simple, compound, and complex. A simple unit is a set of single condition or character. It is also known as conventional unit. A compound unit is a simple unit with some qualifying condition which limit the use of unit. On the other hand, a complex unit is formed by adding two or more qualifications to a simple unit. A rupee, a ton, a house, a month, a worker, etc. are examples of simple unit. Wage per man hour, speed per kilometer, or etc. are examples of complex units. Units of analysis and interpretation are statistical units with the help of which statistical data is analyzed, presented, and interpreted. These units of analysis and interpretation differs from investigation to investigation, depends upon the degree of accuracy desired. Example of units of analysis and interpretation of rates, ratios, and percentages, coefficients, etc. While rates are used to express the relationship among heterogeneous factors, ratios and percentages are used to describe the relationship among homogeneous factors. Usually, rates are expressed per thousand, whereas rate per unit is known as coefficient and a percentage is expressed per 100. A ratio may be expressed in terms of percentage or a coefficient. Now we'll discuss characteristics of good statistical unit. A good statistical unit must possess a few characteristics. One is it must be simple and clear. Okay, the statistical unit must be defined in simple and clear terms. It must be understandable to all connected with the investigation. It must be rigid, defined to avoid confusion and ambiguity. Second, it must be suitable to the object and scope. The statistical unit must suit the object and scope of investigation. As Horace Sechrist said, the purpose of study and the unit of the study and reciprocal to each other. Statistical units cannot be defined without regard to the purpose, and their purpose cannot be outlined with sufficient accuracy without clear notion of units. And next, it must be specified. The statistical unit used in the investigation must be specific. If the unit is not specific, it can be misunderstood, and thus data collected in terms of such units may be suffer on account of inaccuracies. In case of arbitrary units, care must be taken to assign specific meaning. It must be ascertainable. Any unit of study must exist in the real world population. It cannot be hypothetical, unreal. Okay, in the words of W.I. King, not only must the units be defined with precision, but it must also be such a measure that it may be correctly ascertainable. It must be stable and standard. The statistical unit must be stable and standard at different time periods and different places. If the value of statistical unit is subject to frequent changes, the data collected in terms of such units would not be comparable, and the utility of statistical investigation may be lost. And it must be homogeneous. The ensure To ensure comparability, the statistical units must be homogeneous and uniform. And same units must be used to measure. Okay. Heterogeneity of units will make the comparison difficult, confusing, and misleading. For example, if we measure the height with kilogram, is it possible? No, there is no relation to measure that. It's not mass, it's height. If you want to measure the height, you must require meters or centimeters. Okay. Next, it must be self-explanatory. The statistical unit must be self-explanatory explanatory and should not call for lengthy explanations. The self-explanatory nature of the statistical units help the investigator to carry out the investigation without any confusion. Without any confusion. Deciding the source of information is another step. We will discuss there are two types of sources. After determining the object, scope, and statistical units, the next step of the in the planning is nothing but statistical investigation is to decide the source of data, whether they are primary or secondary. We'll discuss here. The sources of data may be primary or secondary. Okay, primary data consists of facts and figures collected for the first time to fulfill the objective of particular statistical investigation. Okay, primary sources include data collected in population census, data obtained through direct interviews with the respondents, etc. Primary data in the hands of person may be secondary data to the others. Okay, now we'll discuss what is secondary data. Secondary data consists of facts, figures originally collected for a particular statistical investigation but are used for different statistical investigation. On the other hand, secondary sources include published and unpublished records. The distinction between the primary and secondary data is only one of the degree because the primary data used by one person maybe if another person uses the same data for the second purpose, then it will become secondary data. Okay, the decision about the choice of source of data depends upon the object, nature, scope, and degree of accuracy desired. Okay, now we'll discuss reasons for degree of accuracy of results. What is first? Before the commencement of collection of data, it is necessary to specify the degree of accuracy desired in clear terms. Since perfect accuracy is not possible, the investigator must aim at reasonable degree of accuracy. This is because of the following reasons. There are some reasons we have. One is statistics is basically a science of estimate. Okay, and the prevalence of unintentional bias. Basically, science is an estimates. Okay, will consider the past data to predict the future. Hence, they are all estimates. The prevalence of unintentional bias. Okay, we sometimes we may don't want to commit intentionally bias, but sometimes that may prevail unintentionally, we call it as. Okay, the problems of approximation and simplification. There is a problem approximation. We are not in a position to give precise results with these statistical tools. That's why there is a problem of approximation and simplification. Errors in collection. There may be a chance of happening the flaws in collection, organization, analysis, and the presentation and interpretation of data, and limitations of resources. Okay, there are a lot of limitations for the resources. According to W.I. King, for every statistical problem, there should be determined in advance a definite standard of accuracy for each item, and every endeavor should be made to bring each record instance up to this standard. But this standard by no means need to correspond to the highest degree of accuracy attainable. The degree of accuracy desired for a particular inquiry will depend mainly on the object and scope of investigation. The time and cost. To achieve the highest degree of accuracy, it is undesirable to incur high costs, but at the same time, accuracy should not be sacrificed to minimize the costs. In the words of Regelman and Frisbee, the necessary degree of accuracy in counting or measuring depends upon the practical value of the accuracy in relation to its cost. Statistical errors cannot be totally eliminated but can be minimized to attain a reasonable degree of accuracy. And we have methods of data collection. The decisions regarding the methods of data collection is considered to be the last stage in planning the investigation. At this stage, the investigator has to decide about the method through which necessary data is to be collected. Broadly, there are two methods of data collection, namely there are census and the method and sample method. First, we will discuss what is census method. Uh, Census method is nothing but it is also known as complete enumeration. We will consider complete enumeration in census method. It implies collection of data for each and every unit of the universe or population. Okay, universe or population. In the words of, according to, in the words of Hamburg, the universe or population consists of uh, total collection of items or elements that fall within the scope of statistical investigation. Okay. On the other hand, sample method refers to the study of a few items selected from a universe. Selected from a universe. Okay. Thus, the results obtained through the sample method are made applicable to the universe from which they are drawn. After planning the statistical investigation, the investigator has to execute the statistical investigation. A well planned statistical investigation helps the investigator to acquaint himself with the plan of operation and execute it. The execution of statistical investigation involves the following steps. Okay. One is making necessary organizational arrangements. We'll discuss first making necessary organizational arrangements. The statistical investigations which have similar coverages do not, sorry, which have smaller coverages, The statistical investigations which have smaller coverages do not require elaborate organizational arrangements, but those investigations which are wider in scope requires elaborate organizational arrangements. Often the investigator has to take the help of the field investigator for conducting the investigation. In certain countries, specialized agencies are engaged to conduct the investigation. The organizational arrangements depends upon the nature and scope of investigation. If particularly a firm is meant to conduct the investigation, certainly because of its experience it will perform effective investigation. Next we have designing various forms. The investigator has to use a variety of forms such as questionnaires, schedules, data sheets, etc. Okay. In the process of investigation, organization, and presentation of data, such forms must be designed properly and systematically beforehand to help the work of investigator. This avoids overlapping and confusion in the execution of the statistical investigation. Now it has become uh, easy by using different apps and softwares to frame or make the forms. Now it is available because of COVID-19 has put a challenge and as well as an opportunity to the mankind to explore their knowledge. And that is also one example we will consider here, designing various forms. It is easy for us to, only we need content. Forms can be questionnaires we can frame, schedules we can make in the using these softwares. We have a lot of quiz making softwares that are available freely on the net. Okay. Next, appointment of necessary field staff. Okay. Investigation with a wider scope requires a number of field staff for the collection of data. If Efficient and well trained investigators are not readily available in the organization. They are to be selected. They are to be selected. Okay, may not available in any organization, of course, whether the organization is big or small. Okay, a trained may not be available for data collection, since collection of data requires intelligence, honesty, hard working, and scientific knowledge. Okay, uh, field investigators. Okay, field investigators are to be selected scrupulously. After the selection of the investigators, okay, they have to be properly trained. Okay, yeah, to equip themselves with the selection of sample, advanced techniques, and methods of data collection. Various terms and reference used in the questionnaire and statistical techniques. Once the investigators are equipped with requisite training, they can be sent for enumeration. They can be sent for enumeration. If necessary, field checks and field audit may be introduced to avoid collection of irrelevant data. All precautions should be taken to convince the non-respondent to give necessary information. Processing and analysis of data. Okay, mass data collection collected through enumeration may certain heterogeneous elements which are in raw form. Such data must be processed and analyzed to make it suitable for further statistical treatment. The data so processed and analyzed will become intelligible, and easy to understand. For processing the data, both manual and mechanical techniques can be used. Modern data processing machines such as calculators, computers, punch cards, etc., may be used to speed up the work with reasonable accuracy. As we have discussed in the previous point, we have a lot of tools freely available on the internet for this purpose. Okay, for analysis for data, simple techniques such as average, dispersion, skewness, they are earlierly manually they try to solve the problems by using these tools. Nowadays, they are also readily available in the form of softwares, Excel sheets. Okay, they can solve if you upload the data, and they can analyze the total data. Okay, we can use for this average, dispersion, skewness, etc. By computer, and will solve the issues. And they can also give us a graphical representation for good understanding of the analyzed data, okay, processed data. And advanced sophisticated techniques like correlation, regression, analysis, time series, probability, etc., can also be earlierly manually they used these tools, but nowadays we can have the same tools on the system. Okay, and we have some applications they can easily easily we can process the data. And lastly, we have preparation of the final report. Okay, after the data is processed and analyzed, the results must be presented in a suitable form or a report. A report may be general and technical. While a general report contains description of data and the result of investigation, a technical report provides additional information such as sample design, statistical units, methods of calculation, etc. A good report must cover the a few aspects. Okay, one is statement of the purpose of survey. Okay, for what purpose you are conducting the survey should be stated in the form of a statement. And second is description of the scope. You must describe the scope of the statistical investigation. And third is specification of frames and design of investigation. Okay, what design you are adopting for the purpose of investigation you are following. Okay, what are the frames we should specify. Okay, and next one is nature and method of collection of information. Okay, what is the nature of collection of information? Okay, what method you are going to adopt for the collection of information should be stated. Statistical analysis and computational procedures. Statistical analysis and computational procedures, which statistical devices we are using for the purpose of analysis and for the purpose of computation should be stated. Computation of results. Okay, we must compute the results. Okay, in the report. Okay, degree of accuracy. Okay, what extent the findings are accurate. Okay, the conclusions which are made and the findings are accurate, we must reveal. Personal and equipment used, what we have used in the statistical investigation, what personal. Okay, that means how much effort you have put in that. Okay, what tools, equipment used. Okay, and comparisons, do we have any comparisons by adopting different methods? Okay, which one is best, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of the adopting those methods? We can compare. We also give references, footnotes, index, etc. in the report, final report. Okay, with this I'll conclude my session. Thank you.